What's up, armchair fandomanium? This is the Real Last Jedi. Sorry about the delay there after the intro. We're still new to this, but I want to welcome you to our first episode of Saturday Fandom Insanity. Each Saturday, we're going to be covering different pop culture topics. We may cover anything from movies to television. We may even cover wrestling or sports. It's just hard to tell what we might cover, just anything that we're interested in at the time. So that's what our Saturday Fandom Insanity is all about. It's a pop culture discussion channel from the perspective of the casual fans. You don't have to be expert in the topics we discuss because that's what we are, is just casual fans. We don't know every little inch of all the canon from each of these fandoms, but it's things that we still enjoy. And if you feel like sometimes you don't fit in with the high class nerds in fandom, then you can come here and just talk about pop culture from a casual perspective. Before we get started, I need to take care of just a few items here. We're having some technical difficulties. I don't know what's going on here.
Hello, armchair fan.
How did you invade my stream?
Since you are the last Jedi, I can't expect you to understand the nuances of being a Sith. So basically,
Yeah.
I'm skilled in Sith sorcery that is way beyond your capacity to
Yeah.
understand. But I've decided to invade this forum to be able to add a perspective on there that kind of balances you out. You people on the light side preach about balance. Well, I'm here to throw everything out of balance.
Yeah. That's what I figured. I didn't figure you don't have any confidence in me, so you had to invade, take
Well,
over.
I've seen you slip up many a time during our runs up and down the hyperspace lanes together, and I decided to do my best to try to prop you up before I, take this lightsaber and stick it where in your back.
Yeah. For anybody, we only got one viewer. It looks like now. I don't know if that's either one of us but for anybody that might tune in later or watch this on repeat, this is my buddy Ashley. We carpooled together for how many years?
5 or 6 at least.
Yeah, we figured it out one time. We spent a month every year in the car together, an hour and a half one way. So we ran out of things to really talk about, and but we invented stuff.
Between fantasy football and everything else, that we covered a lot of ground during those up and down roads on the turnpike.
Yeah. All right, man. What we're going to be talking about today, the first few topics, the topics we're going to discuss is I've already explained what Saturday Fandom Insanity is. I mean, you've discussed it numerous times, a few times here in the last couple months. We're just going to talk about anything that we want to as far as pop culture goes. From my point of view, I've got my pop culture favorites from my lifetime, and I'm sure you got your favorites. We've agreed on some things and disagreed on other things.
Yeah, somebody that doesn't think Tango and Cash is an excellent movie, I really have a hard time taking your opinion seriously, but we won't go there.
Anybody that doesn't like The Walking Dead or never has or never was interested in it.
I work with that.
Get that
Why would I
either.
want to watch a TV show about it?
Yeah. Uh, so, anyways, we're going to be talking about different things of pop culture. My favorite pop culture fandoms is I've never been a comic reader. I've never been a big reader. I would rather watch action take place on a screen. That's always the way I've been. But through my lifetime, I grew into Star Wars. I was real little when the first trilogy came out. Uh, so I didn't really grow into it until later on when I watched them on DVD. And then I remember camping out for episode one, The Phantom Menace. And the prequel trilogy was a pretty good trilogy. It holds up today. It does. Back then, it really didn't hold up. I think George Lucas had too much technology to play with personally, and he lost that magic touch the original trilogy had. Another fandom I enjoy is the MCU. Like I said, I've never been a big comic fan, but
You missed out some
uh,
great stories and comics, man. I'm telling you, one of these days you ought to try to check them out. They're really good.
yeah, I know there are. I like the MCU because of the stories, but there's something about the movie screen that just brings things to life like the written material doesn't. That's just me. But the MCU we'll talk about a little bit later. But to take what was it 11 years and 21 movies and tie an entire story together. Over 21 movies, and within those 21 movies, you have trilogies that are excellent and individual movies that are excellent. A lot of fandom franchises can't really even put a trilogy together, let alone 21 movies that work so well together. We'll talk about that more going forward. Another fandom I enjoy is The Walking Dead. It's my favorite television show ever. I'm trying to do some catching up on some of their spin-off shows right now. Uh, I like the Rocky franchises, just different things. I'm not going to tell you everything I enjoyed over my lifetime. I'm going to let Ashley Darth Pane tell us some of his favorite franchises.
Well, the real Last Jedi, I should say. I would say my favorite movie franchise of all time would have to be the MCU right now, but a close second is the original Star Wars. Because I'm telling you, I remember as a young person that my dad took me to see the original Star Wars movie at a drive-in in Oak Hill in 1977. I was hooked. Then comes, Empire Strikes Back. Then comes The Last Jedi. Not The Last Jedi. Forget that movie. The Return of the Jedi. And that trilogy really set the bar as far as storytelling, as far as just overall graphics, FX, everything, special effects. Took characters nobody had heard of, like Harrison Ford, who's just starting. Mark Hamill, of course, people knew who Carrie Fisher was from her family. Stars immediately, and they just carried a franchise, and the longevity of it resonates with so many people. And you can just see that from the number of people that have seen the television shows to this day, and it's amazing. But not only besides Star Wars and the MCU, as you alluded to previously, I've been a big comic reader for most of my life. I still collect them. I have a bunch of them. Just finished a big Spider-Man story arc, as a matter of fact. And I tell you, when watching these MCU movies take place, I knew a lot of my family did not know, but when I saw that they were doing the Infinity Gauntlet story, I just shook my hands together like this. I knew what was coming because that was one of the biggest stories Marvel ever did. But it's comic book reading still a very good thing to do. And lastly, of course, sports and professional wrestling is still something I keep up with. I mean, professional wrestling is not what it used to be. I know I sound like somebody that's 80, but I'm not there yet. But you know, those guys back then, I think what people, when you see the stuff on the MCU right now, they look bigger than life. Well, back then in the 80s, you didn't have the MCU. You had Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Ole Anderson. Those guys on the television show, Superstation TBS 605 every Saturday night, They were your superheroes. They were the villains. They made it believable. They were the real life heroes. You didn't have this stuff you have now. So now, that stuff is just something I can watch it to this day, because that's something that was the precursor for all the stuff you see now. And anybody that wants to see somebody make you believe something is real, you listen to a promo from Ole Anderson for about 2 or 3 minutes, you're believing every bit of it.
Yeah, we'll talk about we'll do some episodes on wrestling. Man, you've talked about that before. When I was a kid, our parents used to, my brother's parents took us all over the place to see it live. Of course, we were kids. We didn't even know it wasn't real. But yeah, we'll
Well,
talk
that's
about
it.
that.
I mean, you had it here in Beckley area, you had it in Huntington, Charleston. It was all over through here. Big sellouts.
Yeah, you're the guy that always gravitates to the villain.
I've been a villain most of my life, so I figure I might as well go with what I do best.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, I guess we'll move forward. One thing I wanted to do before we discuss any pop culture topics is a channel I follow sometimes that is a really, really good channel if you want feedback on movies. I was wanting to check in and see what the John Campea show's been into here lately. If any of our viewers don't know who John Campea is, John Campea is probably the biggest YouTube movie channel that is out there as far as production quality and everything. He really does do a good job on his channel. I was just wanting to check in on his channel, see if what they're discussing right now. Right now, he's got a review up of a movie that just came out yesterday, Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage. Let's check in and see what he thought about Venom 2. See if we get past this stupid YouTube ad.
Hey guys, so I'm in the car. It is Tuesday, September the 28th. It's about 4:30 p.m. And I am in the car right now, driving into Los Angeles. It's going to take me about another hour and 10 minutes to get there for a press screening.
Well, he was at a press screening.
Please,
I mean, this guy's big time. So whatever he says, you can take to the bank. And he thought Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage was the third best comic book movie ever. That's what he thought about Shang-Chi. I think he's seen Shang-Chi, about 15 times at private screenings.
Renting the theater for his own private parties. I don't know about you. I've never been able to do that, but
Yeah. Yeah, I've never been able to do that, but this guy's big time, and if he tells you Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage is the third best movie ever, it probably is. So you might want to get out and see that one. John Campea said so. Another one he's seen recently is 2 weeks ago, he watched Cop Shop. Let's see what he thought about Cop Shop.
Hey guys, okay, so I just got out of seeing the new Gerard Butler, Frank Grillo film, Cop Shop. And there's something I always say about movies and performances by the actors, which is...
Looks like you watched that one with the general public as everyday schmoes, but he thought that was a really good movie too. He said that was his second best favorite movie of all time. So if you haven't seen Cop Shop, I would urge you to get out there as soon as possible and see Cop Shop as well. So there's 2 movies for you. If you have some spare time here in the near future, you might want to go out and check out Venom 2.
Please feel free to
Shop.
super chat that while you're doing it.
Yeah, make sure you send John Campea a super chat so he can get his private screening set up and inform all of us other regular Joes what movies we should like and not like. Okay, with that out of the way, let's go into our first topic of the day. This story interested me, Ashley, Darth Pane, because you know that Peter Dinklage was famous for his role as Tyrion Lannister on Game of Thrones. and he was honestly my favorite character on Game of Thrones. I don't know who your I think I know who your favorite character on Game of Thrones
My favorite
was.
character on Game of Thrones was Stannis.
Yeah,
Go figure.
yeah, that's what.
I like to burn
Yeah,
people. I can relate to that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I like Tyrion, man. I've always identified with the little guy, and he was the little guy in this show. And
Well, be honest with you, I think one of the more underrated duos on Game of Thrones was Tyrion and Bronn.
yeah,
Tyrion and
yeah,
Bronn helped. They worked together and complemented each other very well, and that's a
yeah. I'm
testament.
sure we'll do a. Yeah, I'm
That's a
sure we'll do
testament
it.
to both Jerome Flynn and Peter Dinklage.
Yeah. Another actor I like that was on Game of Thrones, the guy you like, the guy that played Stannis, Stephen
Stephen Delane.
Yeah, he was in the miniseries John Adams that
Saw
HBO
some of that.
did, and he
He's
played
phenomenal.
Thomas
He's a
Jefferson.
phenomenal actor. There's no question about it.
He really is. I like him. And his son is actually in Fear the Walking Dead. I forget his
I heard his
son's
son was
first
an actor. I
name.
didn't know what he'd been doing.
Yeah. But anyways, Peter Dinklage, I came across this story and I thought it was interesting. I think he's a really good actor.
He's very good.
He was E-Tree in Avengers Endgame, and he also played the elf in Will Ferrell's movie Elf, or not the elf, the children's author that came in to help him finish the book.
Don't forget him, X-Men Days of Future Past.
Was he in that one?
Yes, he was.
Okay. Anyways, I come across this story about 2 months ago, maybe not quite that long ago, but he's going to be in. I don't. You hadn't heard of it, but anybody from the '80s that stayed up late at night watching local television, you remember those movies that came on after the network signed off at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. These B-rated movies that always came on. One of them was the Toxic Avenger, and Peter Dinklage has been signed on. And I'm not sure what stage this production's in, but Peter Dinklage has been signed on to play the main role in Toxic Avenger. I know you've never heard of Toxic Avenger. I don't know much about it. All I know
I'd heard of it, but never watched it.
Yeah, same here. But that just sounded like an interesting project, in my opinion.
If he's in it, it'll be interesting.
I mean, this guy, it's supposed to be about this guy that falls in a vat of chemicals and becomes deformed, and he's a superhero. So I'm interested in it. I'd like to see the trailer. I'm hoping it's not going to be like something like Napoleon Dynamite or something like that, where they make it bad on purpose.
Come on, man! You love Napoleon Dynamite. We both did. I
do, but it's bad on purpose. Just like Gentlemen Broncos. I don't know if you've watched that one. Do you like Napoleon Dynamite?
Of course. Who doesn't like Napoleon Dynamite? Uncle Rico is an icon.
Yeah. Well, then you got to check out Gentlemen Broncos sometimes. It's right up there. It's funny. But I'm interested in this Peter Dinklage's The Toxic Avenger movie. I will be looking forward to a first trailer for this one to see what kind of take they're going to go with this. If they go the serious route, if they're going to go the we're going to copy the B movie feel route. Is this something you'd be interested in seeing?
Well, I might check it out when I go see it. Yeah, there's certainly some number of movies coming up that hopefully if we're able to get to more of a regular schedule of seeing movies, I'd like to go check out. But yeah, it's certainly something that would, just because he's in it, he'll draw plenty of viewers.
Yeah. We got a chat here in a minute. I got my TV on in the background, but it's delayed. But I see we got a chat from somebody. A comment in the chat. We'll check that out here in a minute when it shows up on my actual stream. But in the meantime, our next topic I wanted to cover today was does current Star Wars suck?
The sequel
Let me
trilogy
get your
does,
opinion
without
on it,
question.
Ashley.
The sequel
Does current
trilogy
Star
does.
Wars suck?
The sequel trilogy was terrible, and I don't mind new characters, and it's not that Lucasfilms can't make good new movies, because Rogue One and Solo are a testament that they can. But everything was rushed. I didn't care. I didn't care that Daisy Ridley was the lead character. Felicity Jones did a great job in Rogue One. You never got to learn who Rey was. And all they wanted to do was kill off Harrison Ford, kill off Luke, and of course, poor Carrie Fisher passed away. Who knows what they would have done to Leia? I don't mind new characters, but don't bury the legacy characters. They're the ones that put it on the map, for crying out loud.
Yeah, you've had this conversation numerous times. I liked Rogue One. I didn't like Solo that much.
The sequel
As far as the sequel trilogy goes, I love The Force Awakens. I knew there was some issues with
If
The
you love
Last
New Hope, of
Jedi.
course you love The Force Awakens. Same thing. If you
What's
love New
that?
Hope, if you love The Force Awakens, you could love New Hope. That's
Well,
basically an
yeah.
Episode 4 recast.
Yeah, I know all those complaints people have, but I liked The Force Awakens. I liked The Last Jedi. I knew there was some issues with The Last Jedi, but
What, Mary Poppins
like
isn't
I've
an
told you
issue?
before, The Last Jedi was the middle. The Force Awakens was the first chapter. The Last Jedi was the second chapter. Any book can be ruined or made better in the third act, the third part of the book. And The Rise of Skywalker came out, and that was the first time I walked out of a Star Wars movie totally disappointed and disgusted. And in hindsight, after watching Rise of Skywalker, I realized what a horrible trilogy the entire sequel trilogy was. Like you said, I don't feel like they was trying to do anything else except get rid of what George Lucas did, so that Disney could have total control and make it something completely different what they wanted Star Wars as a franchise to be. With all that said, I liked The Mandalorian. I'm be interested in the Book of Boba Fett. I saw recently there was some news announced, some new Star Wars news. And you've told me The Bad Batch is good.
It is. If Dave
So
Filoni and Jon Favreau are involved, it's good. If they're not involved, look out.
I'll probably check it out. Hopefully I'll be caught up on that. Maybe watch it in the next couple of weeks. We can discuss it. You said you haven't watched Visions?
Not yet. No, I'm going to, but I have not watched it yet. No. A friend of mine has watched them all and said it was okay. I have not watched them yet.
Yeah. I'll probably check it out so we can talk about it. I've just not had any desire to watch anything Star Wars because The Rise of Skywalker just took the whole franchise and threw it under a bus and peeled out on its forehead about 3 or 4 times, in my opinion. But
wait a
that's
minute,
just
man.
my
The
opinion.
Jedi are all supposed to be about hope, man. The real last Jedi. You're all about hope, and what are you doing? You're heading out, man. The Sith are the ones that are about the darkness, man. Come on, you got to be a light in this whole deal.
Yeah.
Now,
Now you're trying to throw me. Now you're trying to throw me under the bus.
That's I do one of the things I do best. But to be fair, I understand your trepidation about when it comes to some of the new Star Wars stuff. I'm telling you, the Clone Wars season 7 was excellent. Bad Batch was very good. And again, you can't really watch Bad Batch, in my opinion, without having seen Clone Wars. And
I've watched Clone Wars. I've seen season 7 also.
Right.
But I am interested in the Bad Batch. I just haven't gotten around to it yet.
But now something I think you need to remember, the new Obi-Wan series is going to be very key here. Yeah. Everybody loves The Mandalorian. Everybody's interested in the Book of Boba Fett. But I think that Obi-Wan series is really going to tell us about where they intend to take this going forward. I think that's really going to be a pivotal series.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in that one. Who wouldn't be? As a Star Wars fan, who wouldn't be interested in the Obi-Wan series?
Not to mention,
what other
Hayden
series they got?
is confirmed to
Ahsoka.
be back as Anakin.
I'll be interested in Ahsoka.
Oh,
and some
Ahsoka's
other
very good
stuff
as
they
well.
announced.
Ahsoka
Yeah.
is a character that I could never understand the hatred for. I'm a big Clone Wars fan, and there was a lot of people that really didn't dislike. They really disliked the character, and I'm like, well, she was a little chippy with Anakin, but Anakin needed that. I never understood the hatred for Ahsoka. I thought she was an excellent character, and Ashley Eckstein did a great job portraying her. I mean, that's really that's another example of a great character that can be created if you do it right.
Yeah, I didn't. I can. You got to stick with Ahsoka when she first shows up. You just got to stick with her. Her story's really, really good, and it leads to a lot of other nice moments in some other shows on down the line with the
Her
Ahsoka
relationship with
character.
Anakin is something
Yeah,
that a lot of people don't know. The fact that basically she was Anakin's basically a sister, a sibling, and basically the relationship they had, you watched it evolve. And I've heard people say that they've had their kids watch, Star Wars, and they never understood how Anakin turned Anakin bad so quick. I said he didn't turn bad quick, but unfortunately, a lot of people hadn't seen the Clone Wars. If you watch the Clone Wars, I'll tell you just what a hero Anakin Skywalker was and is.
yeah, yeah. All right, we'll move on to our last topic. We're going to talk about how long we've been going here. 29 minutes. We'll try to talk about this one we'll probably talk about this one for a lot longer than the other things we've discussed. But we're going to, if I can quit dropping stuff, but we're going to talk about the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We're late to the show on this one. Endgame came out a couple years ago, over 2 years ago. For fans that ain't aware, or anybody that's not aware, the Marvel Cinematic Universe started in 2008 with Iron Man was the first movie that came out, and then 2019 in May, Avengers Endgame came out, and it ended up spanning 11 years and 21 movies that told one overarching story about all these individual characters. And the first movie, actually, in the chronological order, was Captain America: The First Avenger. 2008's Iron Man was the first movie that was released in theaters. But as far as this overarching story, the very first moment in the story, you have to watch the movies in chronological order. You got to watch Captain America: The First Avenger first. And Captain America is the story of Steve Rogers, a underachiever, a tiny person in stature, physically. But that's the MCU made me a Captain America fan. I'll just get that out there because of the story of Steve Rogers. I mean, I just thought they capped his story off in a great way in Avengers Endgame. So for this topic, we're gonna try to catch up weekly by covering one of each of these 21 movies, so that we can catch the channel up to discussing Marvel Cinematic Universe content as it's released. I'm gonna let Ashley give us his overall feelings about the MCU. I know he's a big fan, and then we'll talk about Captain America: The First Avenger.
Okay, Jamie, I thank you. Basically, the MCU is as a whole is I've like in all the years I've watched cinema, I've before you had something like the MCU, most of the stuff you would see on television would center around miniseries or other shows that would tie in together that way. Never in the history of cinema, to my knowledge, before Star Wars, basically, but Star Wars only did it for 6 movies. That something tied together with such a common thread that you needed to watch everything. I mean, every little Easter egg was paid off at some point down the road, and it rewarded
Yeah, yeah,
everybody for being fans of it. And they were taking people that none of us had ever heard of. I mean, most of us knew who RDJ was. We had seen him in previous films, but I saw Chris Evans in the in the Fox Fantastic Four movies. And although I thought they weren't that bad. There were some things I didn't like about them, but Chris Evans was really good in those movies. When I heard he was playing Captain America, I'm like, oh, Chris Evans is kind of funny. I don't know if Steve Rogers kind of a square egg, but hey, Chris Evans pulled it off. No doubt about that. But the MCU as a whole is just something I never thought, and a friend of mine and I have talked about it. We never thought that the characters we saw reading comic books growing up would ever end up on the big screen in such a way and with such vivid imagery. Everything that we've read at this point growing up has paid off. We knew about the Infinity Gauntlet storyline. We knew about Civil War, Spider-Man, all this stuff. We knew this stuff. Now, they didn't have to hold everything to the exact same thing the comics did because, nerds like us are like, oh, that's not exactly right. You can change the stuff up. But they introduced new characters we haven't read. Now, Black Panther took the world by storm. I was never a huge fan of the character itself in the comics because I didn't really. He was more of a character that appeared in the Fantastic Four movies, and I liked the Fantastic Four comics, but I never did resonate with the character. But when they put that in film, the film was excellent, and it made you get an appreciation for the character that you did not see in the comic books. And I think that I've been introduced to other characters that I didn't read about through these movies. And I think now with Disney Plus having, you'll be seeing series with characters like Moon Knight. I never read Moon Knight, but it seems like an interesting character. You got a quality actor in Oscar Isaacs playing the guy. I'll watch it.
You got Morbius coming, Blade. All this new stuff.
Is Blade. If anybody watched any of the Luke Cage series, you'll know the star of the Luke Cage series was Mahershala Ali. The 5 episodes he was in made the entire show for 2 years.
Yeah,
and he'll knock it out of the park as Blade. But again, you're seeing all these characters brought to life, and really, I'm just glad I was able to see it during my years on this earth because I never thought I would see, Iron Man and the Hulk and Thor. I mean, my gosh, I never knew who I didn't know Chris Hemsworth or Tom Hiddleston or any of these guys. They came up. Tom Hiddleston made Loki a likable character. If anybody's read Thor comics growing up, you want to see Thor beat him down every week. But Tom Hiddleston made the guy likable, relatable. Thanos, Josh Brolin. I mean, the same thing. You actually enjoyed watching these guys. And so I would, like I say, we're kind of late to the game on this, but most people know the MCU is. But I recently went and saw Shang-Chi. I never read Masters of Kung Fu growing up. The movie was very good. So I encourage people to see them as often as they can because you're going to get introduced to a whole new world. Maybe you'll get some of the experiences that I did growing up reading comics.
Yeah, John Campea said it was Shang-Chi was the 3rd best comic movie ever.
Well, like the weather, his predictions can change on a weekly or daily basis, depending on a number of factors. But that being said, now I will agree with some of the stuff Campea said. He said the very first Thor movie is one of the most underrated comic book movies ever, and I'll agree with him on that. For the reasons I said earlier, Kenneth Branagh came in there. He took guys that besides Anthony Hopkins and Natalie Portman, nobody knew who some of these people were. Man, they became stars in this movie. Yeah. And, that is one of the most underrated comic book movies ever. He's exactly right on that. And, I don't agree with every one of his rankings, but I mean, some things I have to agree with him on.
That's what I like the most about the MCU, man. Is like I told you earlier, I've never been a comic reader, but these characters that I've never heard of, except maybe possibly Captain America and Thor, and just so many characters. I mean, you can start just naming them all. How many characters were introduced over the span of 21 movies? I mean, you got everybody knows who Spider-Man is, but he's a famous one. But you got like let's start naming off the Guardians of the Galaxy, Star-Lord, Gamora, Rocket, Groot, and then you go to the other franchises, Loki, like you said, Odin, I mean, Thanos, Black Panther, Captain Marvel, every one of these characters, man, there's just so many of them. I missed a ton of them. But over the course of 21 movies, when Endgame came out, each role that every single one of those players played in that final movie, you cared about the character. I mean, you knew why they were there, how they got to whatever role they were playing in that final movie. You knew why they were there. And like you said earlier, every little Easter egg was paid off in some way in that final movie. There was just so many. We'll talk about that when we cover Avengers Endgame in the future. But in closing here, man, I want to talk about Captain America: The First Avenger. Uh, I'll start off and just basically give a brief outline of the movie. Steve, what I liked about Captain America: The First Avenger uh, really don't show up until you watch Avengers Endgame. When you see the character arc that Steve Rogers took from the beginning of the Captain America: The First Avenger, when he's sitting in this theater watching one of the World War II shorts that they would play before the movies, and there's a guy in the theater being rude, and Steve Rogers shows himself to be very patriotic and tells the guy to, show some respect. Well, the next scene is him getting beat up in a back alley by this same guy. And the epitome of Steve Rogers was the line he tells the guy when he says, "I can do this all day." That one line, man, epitomizes the character of Steve Rogers, Captain America, and we see that play out through the entire 21 movies of the MCU. From the fact that at the end of Captain America: The First Avenger, he sacrifices everything, his love, everything, his life, by taking a dive into the ice, which we'll cover when we get to Avengers Endgame, pays off for him at the end. And when we get to when we talk about the movie Iron Man, or we might just do a special episode of this show to talk about the contrast between both of them are heroes, but the contrast in the routes that Steve Rogers took opposed to Tony Stark. Both of them made the ultimate sacrifice in the end, but they had to take different routes to get there, and why they had to take different routes to get there. Go ahead and give us your opinion on Captain America, man.
Well, I agree with a lot of what you said, but growing up, Captain America, I was never interested in the character. I never wanted. He was in the Avengers. I bought the comic a couple of times. It was just a guy running around with a shield. Basically, the way I looked at it. Nothing to him, but and I thought he's okay, but it didn't really excite me to read him like Spider-Man, Thor, and Ghost Rider and the like. Well, seeing this movie, of course, I knew Chris Evans was a phenomenal actor. That was never the issue. Supporting cast, excellent. Hugo Weaving as the Red Skull, home run. I mean, people I'd never seen before. Haley Atwell as Agent Carter. Hey, excellent. Tommy Lee Jones. Who doesn't know Tommy Lee Jones? But I mean, again, the character itself, they managed to make Steve Rogers so relatable, and he was an overachiever. He wasn't big. He did his best to get in there. He was loyal to a fault. His buddy Bucky always took care of him, and he stood with Bucky through everything. And in the end, Chris Evans made Captain America, really. Again, it's another example of sometimes, like Black Panther, although I wasn't really a big fan of the character reading the comic, once you see it on the big screen, it puts a whole new spin on it. And I'm here to tell you that, it made a lot of money. I mean, for crying out loud, Ant-Man made a lot of money. I mean, do you think anybody thought you'd want to see a movie on Ant-Man? He was one of the original Avengers. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Ant-Man's gonna be a movie? And I'm out. Nope. Ant-Man was really good. And Paul Rudd is Ant-Man, home run. Michael Douglas, home run. But we're not talking about Ant-Man. We're talking about Captain America. And again, they did such a good job because if you knew Hugo Weaving, you knew him from the Matrix trilogy, so you knew he was going to have his A game, even with just only seeing his face a little bit. And just seeing, I'm a World War II aficionado, as you know, seeing all that from World War II and being able to put that on a big screen in a comic book context, and again, and how it's kicked off. I mean, we all know Iron Man was the first one in the MCU, But chronologically, like you say, Captain America was a great one to lead off and start the whole MCU with, and everything afterward just kept snowballing, and it just that set the tone, for lack of better
Yeah.
terms. That movie set.
Could you give us more of a rundown of the plot, the storyline of the movie? I
Well,
know
the
you've
plot
seen these movies
was
a lot more than me. I meant to watch this last
right.
couple of days,
Well,
refresh my mind. But
the plot basically, again, it was World War II. United States had just came into the war. And like you say, Steve Rogers was trying to be like every other American, trying to sign up, get in the army. But like you say, you saw him, you knew they were saving his life by keeping him from joining. And so basically, the Germans, they were they were taking over Europe. The Allies were on the run, and they were trying. The Americans hadn't got over there yet. So basically, they had this program with super soldiers. They figured they'd shorten the war by getting a group of super soldiers, and they had, a scientist who was going to basically have this formula that would basically turn an average man into a super soldier. And Hugo Weaving's character of Johann Schmidt had taken the same formula, and it made him more evil than what he was. So the trick with this formula is you need to find somebody who, like you said, I'll do this all day, and who has a heart bigger than himself, and that's what Steve Rogers was, and that turned him basically into a non-green Hulk. And once he got it, and of course the Hydra tried to get it, which is the rogue Nazi science division, tried to get the formula back, and the formula was lost. So we thought, if you watch the other movies, you'll see what happened down the road. And once Captain America, and again, to show you an example of what politicians did, once they had the super soldier serum, they tried to make him a cheerleader and to sell him war bonds. This guy could have ended the war 2 years sooner if you'd have put him in the front lines. But they had him doing a dance show. Again, another example of how politicians don't have a clue 9 times out of 10.
yeah,
So once Captain America finally got in the field and was able to do what he does best, kick tail and take names, you saw the results. And basically, that showed that somebody that was an overachiever like Steve Rogers, if you're that way, you could be a superhero. And I think it was a great job of taking something from the. When I first saw the movie was coming out, I was like, okay, 1940s World War II. How are we going to make people want to see that now? Because how many war movies you see out in the theaters nowadays? Zippo. But they did a great job of not only doing that, but making this guy believable. And hey, who couldn't cheer for Captain America in a daggone movie? And and then later on, you see how him and Tony Stark played off of one another. It's just an example of just how. Again, I never read Iron Man either. A buddy of mine loves Iron Man, but I never gave 2 cents for Tony Stark. He was just jerking an iron suit. But when you watch the movies, you could get behind him. Same thing with Captain America. I thought he was just a guy rolling around with a shield, but guess what? There's a lot more to him than that. And having these movies, and Captain America, the first Avenger, the title says it all. He was the first Avenger.
yeah, that's what reminds me. One reason I like the character is you mentioned Tommy Lee Jones, and it reminded me of the scene where before he got the super soldier serum, they threw the dummy grenade out on the ground in boot camp, and he jumped on it and was willing to take that blast for everybody else. And I don't remember what the doctor's name that invented the serum, but he
Dr.
told
Erskine.
him, yeah, he told him when the night before he was going to take the serum that it made the serum made the bad worse and the good great. And we saw that in a couple of different characters throughout the MCU. It wasn't the super soldier serum that made Steve Rogers Captain America. It was what was inside of him. And we even see that play out in Avengers Endgame all the way up to the end, the very end.
Yep.
Well, man, we've been going about 50 minutes here. I'm thinking we'll go ahead and close it out.
Okay.
Next week, I'll get in touch with you and tell you what we're going to be discussing. And
That'll be fine.
what's the second movie in the chronological order? Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel, I believe, and it's a sneak peek for Captain Marvel. I'm here to tell you, I knew you did too, Jamie. Captain Marvel, again, I grew up with the character being Walter Lawson, who was a guy. And that's kind of what I was hoping to see. But the comics made Carol Danvers the character, which is fine. When I first saw Captain Marvel in the theaters, I thought it was solid, not a bad movie. But that movie, believe it or not, the more times you watch it, it gets better. And there's some really good stuff in that movie. So that's not one to sneeze at.
Oh yeah, I agree, man. I mean, there's good stuff in all the MCU movies. There's none of them really that are bad. It's just some of them are great, and then that makes the other ones not seem as good as they. I mean, you compare, like, say, Shang-Chi to Avengers Endgame or Infinity War, it's not going to seem that good, but by itself, it's great. But yeah, next week we'll talk about Captain Marvel, and I'll find us some news to discuss. Of course, we'll answer the question: does current Star Wars still suck?
Yeah, please feel free to send any questions. You don't have to super chat us. We'll answer them anyway.
Yeah, you don't have to give us money like John Campion. We'll answer your questions anyway.
You feel free to send some if you'd like. I mean, anything to help the channel get better, we're all for.
Yeah,
except
and
replacing the two hosts.
Before I forget, please, to help the channel, go like our videos, subscribe to our channel,
share,
hit the notification bell, and leave a comment for us on our YouTube channel. You can't comment through our Facebook group or through our stream. You have to go through the actual YouTube website and watch the videos through there to be able to comment. But leave us a comment, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and help our channel grow. All we're doing here is just talking about what we like. And hopefully, I know there's other people out there with the same interests, so hopefully the channel appeals to them. And whether we got 4 or 5 viewers, man, we'll do this every week. We don't get to talk much
some of the other channels I've seen will grow.
Yeah, but we'll see if Star Wars still sucks. We didn't get our conclusions to that question. I think current Star Wars sucks. What's your conclusion?
Sequel trilogy sucks. The rest of it does not. And again, and that's not even. It's a whole another can of worms. But I will say that Lucasfilm hasn't done everything. It hasn't all been bad. But the sequel trilogy was just so rushed in an effort to make money. I mean, the Disney Plus series are phenomenal. The standalone movies were excellent. I mean, they can do this. Just let Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni do it. It's easy. It's easy peasy, like Paul Rudd said in Ant-Man.
Yeah, that's money just waiting to happen. Talking about the Star Wars franchise. But yeah, we'll talk about those still suck. We'll ask that question. We won't cover it as much as we did tonight. We'll just chime in real quick because I'm going to check out Bad Batch and probably Visions and tell you what I think about it. My opinion of current Star Wars may change as we go forward. But I like The Mandalorian. Overall, I think the franchise sucks right now, but my opinion probably might change.
And I would also like to throw in this for the Star Wars thing. A lot of stuff, when Lucasfilms bought it, they made the EU stuff Legends. I hadn't seen a lot of the EU stuff. But they took stuff like Grand Admiral Thrawn and made him canon. I'm here to tell you something else they've made canon is the Darth Pane trilogy. It is the best Star Wars I've ever read, period. If anybody wants to know how the Sith got started, really and truly, how before Palpatine, Vader, and all this stuff, you need to read the Darth Pane trilogy. This guy was the real deal, and that they made him canon through the Clone Wars series, and there'll be a series coming out on him, I've heard. So if you, again, that's not, they haven't done everything wrong with Star Wars, and the Darth Bane trilogy is something that will be coming.
Yeah, all right, man. We'll look up some interesting pop culture news that if you find anything that you find interesting,
send topic requests.
Over to me. Huh?
They can send topic requests as well.
Yeah. You as well. If you see anything interesting, shoot it my way.
Absolutely.
Anything interesting you want us to talk about? I'll be looking forward to the Toxic Avenger trailer, and maybe we'll cover more trailer information and stuff going forward. But man, we're gonna close it down now. I hope everybody has a good remainder of your weekend, and
I'll be heading back to Korriban to study in the Sith archives.
yeah.
Reading the books.
Yeah. All right, man. Take it easy.
All right, you too. Take care, everybody.